Church, how we doing this morning? Good. It was so cool. I love getting to come up here for one reason. When you're standing back here getting ready to come out here and the beautiful vocalists up here stop singing, I hear you all. And it's absolutely incredible. I'm like, man, this is just a little taste of like heaven. You know what I mean? Getting to praise Jesus and hear the amazing body of believers singing out praises to Jesus. It's absolutely so cool. I love it. Well, real quick here, y'all. On or around your chair, there's one of these little cards. If you filled one of these out last week, please ignore it. Don't fill out another one. We don't want skewed data. As a teacher, I need good data. So don't fill out 2 cards and mess up my data, okay? That would really mess up my whole system and flow. This is a completely anonymous survey. We just want to get an idea of where you are currently at with your generosity and your giving and where you would like to go and what that next step is. The reason it's on paper, we don't want your name. We don't want your handwriting. A check isn't going to tell us who did anything, all right? This is 100% completely anonymous between you and God. We just want to know, where are you at with this? And what's going on with this? We got about 100 responses last week, and y'all, it was really, really incredible to see the honesty of where we're at, and then people are really wanting to take some of those next steps and figure out what they could do next. So we really, really appreciated that. So if you are here for the first time today, or if you missed last week, or maybe you were looking around for one of these last week, but the person next to you stole yours and you were silently judging them the whole time, that's okay. There's more today. Grab one, and when the buckets pass a little later on, drop this in the bucket so that we can kind of see where we're at with that, okay? We've been in a series about generosity. I do apologize ahead of time. I have a little cough, so if I cough in your ear, just judge me silently too. It's okay. We'll get through it together, okay? But I want to start today with a little bit of trivia to kind of get us thinking in the thread of how blessed we are as Americans, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some trivia. Trivia. Where are my trivia people at? Good. There's only like one person last time who was like, woo! And I'm like, all right, I'll go talk to you. The rest of y'all take a break. It's fine. What we're going to do with this trivia, there are no points, they mean absolutely nothing, and nobody can win, and everybody loses, all right? So that takes all the pressure off of getting it right, okay? I'm going to put a question up here, and I'm going to give you 10 to 15 seconds to talk to somebody around you. For those of you who strategically chose the seat like 8 seats away from everybody else, I'm going to force you to talk to people around you today, all right? But it's in a completely non-threatening way, and you're already a loser. You've already lost, so it's okay, all right? We've taken all that edge off now. Now, do we feel okay? Feeling better? All right. Here's our first question. How many items are there in the average American home? Talk it out with somebody near you, 10 to 15 seconds. All right, shout out some answers. What do y'all think? 5,000. 10,000. Can't I get a 15? I feel like I'm up here like an auction and I'm bidding, hey? Anybody go higher than that? What do we think? 500,000? Correct answer? 300,000 items in the average American home, y'all. And I started thinking about that. I was like, that's crazy. But then I started thinking about those 4 drawers in my kitchen that hold all the utensils. And I'm like, well, there's 10,000 items right there, right? That huge junk drawer. There's 50 million matches in there, 27 ketchup packets, right? We all have that drawer. Every single person is laughing because we call it the drawer of shame and we know it and we all have it, but we all pretend like it doesn't exist. Okay, that's perfect. All right, next question here. How many current storage facilities are there in the U.S.? Talk it out with your partner. In the U.S. Good clarity. All right, shout out some answers. What do we think? 1 million? 50,000? 5,000? 200,000? Correct answer, 50,000 storage facilities, y'all. That means on average, there is 1,000 storage facilities in every state in the United States. Here's what that would equate to. Currently then, first of all, that is 5 times the number of Starbucks currently in our country, okay, if that puts that in perspective. And that means there is currently 7.3 square feet of self-storage space for every man, woman, and child in the nation. So it is actually possible that every American could stand inside of a storage facilities all at the same time in the United States. Why? Because we got a lot of stuff. All right. Number 3, the average American kid owns how many toys, and how many of those do they play with daily? Talk it out with your partner. All right, let's start with the first one. How many toys do we think they have on average? 100, 200, 1,000? How many do we think they play with daily? 3, 2, 5. Answer, 238 toys, and only 12 of those are played with daily. And again, y'all, I was like, man, this is crazy. But then I started thinking, I'm like, I got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. I clean up 10 million toys a day. Like, it's got to be at least 10 million, right? And it's the same Lego over and over and over again. I'm like, that Lego was just gone 5 seconds ago. And my daughter goes, hee hee. And I'm like, stop it, you little sinner. I love you. All right, number 4. What percentage of American income is donated to any charitable cause? What percentage? Talk it out with your partner. Ooh, we got really quiet on this one all of a sudden. Everybody's like, oh no, conviction. Oh. All right, thoughts? 8, 5, 10, 20, 1. Correct answer, 1.9%. For a country that has so much stuff, we need 50,000 sites to hold it, and we have 300,000 other items in our houses. 1.9% given to charitable causes. Fascinating. Final question. How much money is spent annually by Americans on non-essential goods? Dollar amount. Talk it out with your partner. We've gotten a lot quieter on these last two. Are we feeling convicted? Yeah? Yeah? All right, what do we think the number is? 12,000, 3 billion, 300 billion. Correct answer, $1.2 trillion. And that one's from National Geographic. For a country that has so much, to give so little just doesn't make sense to me. And I had to start asking myself the question why. We're in this wonderful series called the Generosity Challenge, right? Mark has done an incredible job over the last few weeks kind of outlining what living generously looks like, the dangers of debt, and then what the Bible says about this idea concept called the tithe. And I have been so blessed and encouraged and challenged by this. I hope that you guys have too. And so when he asked if I could take the final week of it, I said, absolutely, Mark, I'd love to. And then as I started getting into this and praying about it, I was like, I have no idea what to say. And it was one of the harder things for me to prep for this week. But when I got down to it, God just kept saying, Tarek, look at where you are. You are in a country that literally has more than any other civilization has ever had in the history of mankind. Start there. I was like, okay. So where I went with that then is kind of where we're going to go today. We're going to look at the concept of faith and how faith in Jesus plays a vital role in our ability to live generously through a story of a man who pretty much everybody in the Bible that had interacted with him hated. And we're going to see how his interaction with Jesus today completely changed everything about who he was and what he did. Okay? So as we go through this passage today, we're going to have an overarching question here that I want us to keep in mind and consider. And we're going to come back to this at the end. So those of you who are note takers, I hope you all are note takers. But for those of you who are note takers or picture takers, let's take a picture of the question, because this is going to be one I want us to think about through this week of Thanksgiving as well. Okay? Does my generosity with my time, my gifts, my possessions, and my finances reflect the faith that I have in Jesus? Does my generosity with my time, my gifts, my abilities, my possessions, and my finances reflect the faith that I have in Jesus? And as we read about this guy named Zacchaeus today, we're going to have 3 kind of sub-guiding questions with Zacchaeus, and here's what they are as we go through this. What had Zacchaeus been seeking that was not Jesus? How did his faith in Jesus change him? Typo. What in his life reflects that faith? Okay, so we ready to do this? Y'all ready? Do we need to stand up and do some toe touches and some stretches? Anybody? Anybody? Where's my sleepers at? Where you at? Okay. I've been known to wander out there and hit you in the back of the head if you sleep, okay? So please don't fall asleep during my sermon today. All right, perfect. Here we go. We are going to jump into the Gospel of Luke. That's kind of towards the back. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And we're going to be in chapter 19 today. So for those of you that have a phone Bible or a paper copy, go ahead and open up to Luke chapter 19. And we're going to start right here in verse 1. He, Jesus, entered Jericho and was passing through. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. Okay, we're going to stop here and talk about Zacchaeus for just a second because our first question that we are looking to answer today was, what was Zacchaeus seeking that was not Jesus? And we see the answer here in verse 2. What was Zacchaeus seeking that was not Jesus? It's pretty obvious. First of all, a title. Chief tax collector. Okay, I don't know about you, but every time I hear the word chief, I think of somebody who's making 6 figures plus, right? Chief operating officer, chief executive officer, right? It's not like he was a low-level tax collector in Jericho or even a middle manager. This guy was probably running the whole show, running the whole shebang. And Jericho was not a small, dainty city. It was a fortified fortress of a city on the outskirts of the Israelite Empire. Okay? So, he had clearly been working for quite a while to obtain this power, this title, and this acclaim. And I can guarantee you all, if you were able to have the title Chief anything, you're going to feel pretty good about yourself too, right? Chief Master Flo up here in the front row, right? Great Flo. I'm just going to give you that name right now, Rick's Chief Master Flo. I like that, okay? If we had that title, we would feel pretty good about ourselves, right? We had worked for something, we had accomplished something, and this was the first thing that we see that Zacchaeus was seeking instead of Jesus was power, acclaim, and a title. And the reason that he wanted that, and we won't go into this too much today, is Zacchaeus was doing some really shady dealings actually, and with this power and this authority, if the Roman government was saying, hey, you need to give 12% for your tax, Zacchaeus was taking 15% and pocketing that 3%. Off of pretty much everybody. He was doing some really shady dealing, but because he was the top dog and he had all the titles, nobody really questioned him. He just got really, really rich off of these doings with the people in Jericho. And that's the second thing that we see from verse 2 that he was seeking. He was seeking to get incredibly rich, to have wealth, and to have everything that he would ever need taken care of. How rich was he? It's kind of hard to do a direct comparison from 2,000 years ago Roman Empire to modern day U.S. But if we kind of take his position, what his title would have meant, and we kind of prorate that to American dollars today, it would be a good estimation that Zacchaeus' net worth at his age was probably $15 to $20 million. Okay? He was doing incredibly well by the world standards. He was doing incredibly well in this position of power that he had. And I would say that he would probably be considered in the top 1 to 2% of the world, even at that time, with how much money he was making off of people. Up until this point, Zacchaeus had only been seeking those two things: title, power, acclaim, money, all the things that come with that position. And he was doing, again, remarkably well. But what's so crazy about this, as the story goes on here, is with all of those things, with those titles, with those positions, with those raises, with everything that he had, Zacchaeus is not content with his life. He's just not. And we see that here as we continue going, because he was seeking to see Jesus. He was seeking to see Jesus, who was coming by. But on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was a man of small stature. That is not the action. Seeking something else out is not the actions of a man who is content, right? If you are content and you're Zacchaeus, you're back at the tax office because everybody else is off watching Jesus, and now you get to charge them late fees and line your pockets even more if you're content with what you're doing, right? If he was a content man, he would be sitting back, taking care of business, making it every other day, because he wouldn't be worrying about needing something more. But it's very obvious that Zacchaeus was not content, because what we see here, he had to go and seek something else. Even with $15 million in the bank, even with one of the highest titles and positions in the city, he had to go seek something else. You see, he was compelled to be out on that street because he had a genuine curiosity about a very, very, very clear question. Is my money and my worth and my titles and my positions better than what is coming? And he had to face that question that day. And he had to come to kind of a pivotal crossroads. Do I go back, continue living the same life I'm living, build up my wealth, build up my status, build up my power, or do I go out and just at least even attempt to see this man who I have heard incredibly amazing things about? And while that answer seems kind of obvious today, we're like, well, duh, obviously go take Jesus, right? You got to remember this is 2,000 years ago, and we don't have the hindsight of 2,000 years of the Bible to tell us. Here's probably what was going through Zacchaeus' mind as he was considering this question. One, we see in verse 3, the crowd, first of all, there's all these obstacles in his way, right? The crowd was too big. Zacchaeus was a little guy. Best estimates was he was probably like 4'11", 5'1", very, very short, even for the people of the day. So he couldn't see over this crowd. He was going to have to climb a tree just to even get a glimpse of Jesus. We see a little bit more in verse 7. I don't even have it up there, but it says, when they saw what Jesus does for him here in just a second, they all grumbled because Jesus has asked this man to be a guest, and this man is a horrible sinner. Like Zacchaeus, everybody hated him, right? Everybody was like, man, that's the guy that steals our money. Nobody likes this guy. So he had everything against him in his effort to go seek Jesus, to even get a glimpse of this man who he had heard so much about. Not to mention the fact that he was probably sitting there wrestling with, I've also heard about this Jesus guy, and people tend to give up a lot of things when they're around him. I got a lot of money. I don't really know if I want to give that up. I don't really know if I want to give up my title, my position, all of these things. Can you imagine being Zacchaeus sitting here, chewing on all of this, but Jesus is coming, and you have to make a choice, right? And so what's he do? He runs ahead and he climbs a sycamore tree so that he can pursue, so that he can seek, so that he can even catch a glimpse of this man named Jesus who he's heard so much about. You see, nothing was going to stop Zacchaeus from seeing Jesus that day. He had all of those things against him internally, externally, but something happened in Zacchaeus that day, something that was so strong, it completely overcame him, and it shifted the way that he started to view pretty much everything, and he was suddenly willing to leave behind that life that he had, filled with everything that he could ever want, so that he could pursue something better. And notice how he doesn't even say that he wanted to talk to Jesus or interact with Jesus. He just wanted to see him. And I think that's really important, because this was Zacchaeus' first step to understanding that faith in Jesus could open up something in him that he had been longing for. Because again, a content person would have sat right where they are and not needed to change. But Zacchaeus needed something different. So when we are pursuing stuff and we shift from whatever that stuff is that we are pursuing, I say stuff very generally because we pursue a lot of things in America, right? We pursue promotions, the ideal family, a secure 401k, security in life, the best paint color on the block, the best green, most lush yard of anybody on the block, and we mow it first so that our neighbors have that social pressure of having to mow their yards, right? We all have these things that we pursue. So when we pursue all that stuff, but we stop and we begin pursuing Jesus alone, we open up a whole new realm of possibility to Jesus working through our life to do something incredible. And we see that here in our next question. How did Zacchaeus' faith in Jesus change him? He scrambled up a tree, had enough faith to just want to get a glimpse of this man, and here's what happens next. And Jesus came to that place, to the sycamore tree, and he looked up to him and said, do we have that up, Dina? There we go. And Jesus came to that place. He looked up to him and said, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him, Jesus, joyfully. One sentence was all it took for Zacchaeus to scramble out of that tree and run down to be with Jesus, okay? A couple of words that are really important here. First of all, the word joyfully is the word kairo. Everybody say kairo. Cairo, good. And that means to rejoice exceedingly, or to be well, or to thrive. So this isn't just like, oh yeah, joy, woo, right? This is like a little kid on Christmas morning screaming bloody murder because that truck that they really wanted was under the Christmas tree. This is that level of joy, okay? And the second word we see, Zacchaeus hurried. I love the word hurried here just because I like this Greek word, so I wanted to share it with you. Spudo. Everybody say spudo. First time I read it, I read speedo. I was like, word speedo's in the Bible? What is this? This is crazy, and it's kind of weird. Nope, spudo, and it means to make haste. Okay, and the way that I like to think about it, this is the same word that's used when the shepherds who heard about the birth of Jesus moved to go see the newborn king. That's the word spudo. It's with great urgency. It's with absolute purpose. It's with great intentionality. It's not like this, oh yeah, I'm just going to get there when I get there. It's getting there with purpose. So Zacchaeus is up in this tree. Jesus says to him, hey, come down. I must eat lunch at your house today. And with that level of childhood excitement and that level of speed, Zacchaeus bolts out of that tree and gets down to be with Jesus. Y'all, Zacchaeus kind of lost it for a second, all right? In a really good way. Because while in the presence of Jesus and with the invitation of Jesus to him, notice what he didn't do. Zacchaeus didn't run back to work. He didn't think about going and getting his house cleaned up and getting everything perfectly ready. He didn't worry about snagging his Patagonia jacket on the way out of this large tree. Okay, he didn't care about creasing his Jordans as he hit the ground and getting dirt on them, walking like this so they don't get all creased. Y'all know who you are. It's okay. I love you still. He didn't play it all cool like, oh yeah, Jesus, of course you can come to my house. I've got servants. They can make us lunch. It'll be great, right? He could have done all of those things and he didn't. Instead, what Zacchaeus did was recognize and know and understand this man, this person, this encounter with this person is so incredibly important that something special really happened in Zacchaeus. And all he wanted to do at that point was go be with Jesus as quickly as possible. All he wanted to do was sit with him at his house and eat a meal with him. And all he wanted to do was welcome him into his life and his home. All based off of one sentence. I must come eat at your house today. That's how much power there is in the Lord of the universe that we have access to, y'all. That's how much power there is in Jesus. So how did Zacchaeus' faith in Jesus change him? I'm going to argue in that moment, even with just one sentence, it changed Zacchaeus in every conceivable way. His faith and willingness to pursue Jesus all the way up a tree, even with his stature, even with all of the things that he was battling in his brain, created a genuinely exceeding joy that he had never experienced before. And instead of running back and putting his trust in all of the things that he had once put his trust in, he only looked forward to going and being in the presence of Jesus. And I don't know about you all, but 15 million would be hard to leave for me and say, I don't need that because this is better. So, what then in Zacchaeus' life? Our third question guiding our story here. What in Zacchaeus' life reflected that faith that he now had in Jesus? Okay, we've already seen one, that intrinsic joy that just completely overcame him, that Cairo joy. But on the outside, we see a shift as well, and we see that here, I think it's in verse 8. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, okay, first of all, if you're in the presence of Jesus, you probably aren't going to stand. I don't know about you, like I'm not going to stand up and be like, hello, Jesus. And look what Zacchaeus says, behold. Like, do you know who you're talking to, man? You should probably reconsider how you're actually going about this. But then I have to remember Zacchaeus is like 5 foot, so him standing is probably just so Jesus can even see him at all, right? But I love that. But he says, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. One sentence, one meal with Jesus. Zacchaeus takes his 15 million, takes 7.5 of it, donates it right away. And then he takes the other 7.5 and says, I earned this incorrectly, and I'm going to give it back to everybody I stole it from. And not just what I stole from them, 4 times what I stole from them. Do you see that transformation? Do you see how quickly Zacchaeus goes from holding on to that title, that position, that money, to knowing and understanding this person in front of me, this Jesus, now that I've sat here with him and I understand what he's about, I don't need anything else. He's filled me up completely, so I'm going to take everything else that I once put my faith in, and I'm going to give it away because that person has filled me completely with everything that I will ever need. I can't even imagine that level of transformation based on just a small and simple conversation, except for the fact that that small and simple conversation wasn't with just an ordinary person, y'all. It was with somebody who could absolutely fill that deep longing void that was in Zacchaeus' life from a very young age, that he had been trying to fill with all of those other things for so long, that got him ostracized from his people, that got him put on the outskirts of everything, so much so that he had to even just sneak out there to try to even get a glimpse. And when he did, and Jesus changed his life, he immediately said, I need to give everything else away because it doesn't matter in relationship to knowing Jesus. You see, he understood all the stuff in the world isn't going to satisfy. And he had all of this stuff in the world, y'all. I don't know about many of you, but I ain't running a 7-figure, 8-figure bank account, okay? He literally had everything in the world. So instead, I should seek Jesus. And this will cause such a genuine joy and excitement in my life that I will be forever changed. And then everything that I had once devoted so much time, energy, and effort to, in light of this person that I now love and see and has a best fulfilled life for me, I'm going to give all of that back in a way, in a conversation. You see, Zacchaeus' story is one that helps us truly see that when we genuinely invite Jesus into the very core of who we are, Jesus will fill us with a joy that is so complete and an inexpressible gratitude that our life will try to reflect all of that joy and all of that generosity, and we will try to do everything that we can to give that back, even though Jesus doesn't demand it at all. He doesn't ask you to give everything up. He just asks you to trust him with everything that you have. So let's make this practical today. Let's take those same 3 questions that Zacchaeus faced, and let's put ourselves in there as well. What have I been seeking? What have I been seeking that is not Jesus? Or another way to say it, what have I been trusting in that isn't Jesus? Maybe it's my money. Maybe it's my security over life. Maybe it's my position or my schedule or my plan or the perfect family Christmas photo and the perfect family Christmas Harry Potter pajamas, whatever it may be. What have I been trusting in that is not Jesus? Second, how has my faith in Jesus changed me? If you are a true follower of Christ here today, I want you to think on this one over this week. How has your faith in Jesus changed you since you have followed him? I want you to really process on that. Write it down, journal. I don't know if you dictaphone or whatever that recording is, however you want to reflect, but reflect on that question. How has my faith in Jesus changed me? And then what evidence is there in my life that reflects that faith? Does it look any different? Does it not? Reflect on those as we go through this. You see, Zacchaeus confronted those same questions, and his response was to pour out in absolute generosity everything, because he understood at that point, when I have faith in Jesus, there is no longer a need for anything else except to make things right with the people that I've wronged. I love reading this story because I relate a lot to Zacchaeus. Several of you have heard parts of my story. I'm going to give it to you kind of laid out here all at once here today. I was a practicing atheist until I was 18 years old. What I mean by that was I was making it my goal to try to get Christians to stop believing in Jesus. Okay, that was my goal in life. And many of you probably find that shocking who've only known me since I've come to Christ here, okay? But I had a lot of trust in my own abilities. I had a lot of trust in my own skills and my own financial savvy, in my ability to relate to people, to lead, to do all of these things. And I'll tell y'all, and this is not like a low-key brag or anything, it's just part of my story and who I was. I reached the top in a lot of areas, okay? I was the standout senior in a class of 250, and I had a whole front page article written about me. I was captains of multiple sports teams, drum major of the band. I got enough scholarship my freshman year of college that I actually got a $10,000 check back because my college was paid for plus some, okay? By the world's standards, I had my entire life together. Everything was looking really good. I was doing everything really, really right, just like Zacchaeus. And I think that's why it resonates. I'm like, man, could I get me a $15 million 401k by the time I'm 40 and just retire and do nothing the rest of my life? That would be awesome. That's where I was going. And I was well on my way to becoming an engineer at K-State, industrial engineering. And I had this really innate ability to kind of sway people to do what I wanted. And I'll be honest, before Jesus, I used that in a really inappropriate way, and I manipulated people, okay? I had all of the power, the title, the authority, all of the skill to go with it. And yet I found myself much like Zacchaeus, searching for something more because it didn't seem to matter how much I had or what I did. There was still this constant empty void in my life. And no matter what I tried, a party, a girlfriend, money, a new title, a new position, a position within my fraternity, a position within the College of Education, or College of Engineering at that time, I switched to education later. It didn't seem to matter. Nothing gave me a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Nothing. And about halfway through my freshman year, a guy named Josh, you guys have heard me say his name before if you've been here for any stretch of time, finally started to unpack the gospel for me. For a very long series of painstaking back and forths. Josh was way smarter than me, so he even outwitted all of my claims to try to make him not a Christian. He was just so smart. I love the guy, and I'm so thankful that he's the one that Jesus sent to me, because I would have just totally destroyed anybody else. And he would sit there and listen and then be like, however, and I'm like, oh crap, he's going to say something profound here, and I'm not going to be able to argue it. And it always happened that way. But then I began to follow Jesus. Everything changed from that point on. I immediately switched out of the College of Engineering to the College of Education. I took most of that money that I had left over from college and scholarships, and I put it into a savings account with the intention of using it on other people later. It was just a sudden and quick change to realize everything that I've been pursuing, everything that I thought was good in my life was really nothing compared to this new knowledge that I found in my Savior for the first time. Through that then, I got through college. I got an incredible job here. It's what kept me in Junction City, and I'm so glad God has me here, because out in that little glass room out there is where I met my wife. Now we are sitting here on the same page, constantly living for Jesus the best that we possibly can. And y'all, we understand how much, my wife also has an incredible story. I won't share her story with you. That's hers to share. But we both have been given so incredibly much that we understand no matter what comes our way, it's really not ours at all. Because the only thing that came our way that really matters is Jesus filling the voids and the holes in our life that we absolutely needed him to fill. And so even over the last 5 years, there's been some ups and some downs. We've been a little broke. We've been really broke. There's been months where as we figure out the budget, we're going to be like $1,000 in the hole. And we had to question, do we stop our tithe? Do we stop giving? Do we stop doing these things? And we never did, and we're so thankful that we didn't. Because on those months when we could have very easily cut out giving back to Jesus, where we were going to be super broke, at the end of that month, we ended up with positive numbers in our bank account, and it made no sense. Okay? God math is what we call it. But because of this, her and I have never held on to anything too dear. And even though we've been tempted to kind of bow down to fear and being generous with our life, our skills, and our abilities, we never did. We always used it because we knew and understood, just like Zacchaeus did from his story, when Jesus truly comes into our life, everything that we have, we now understood was a gift from him anyways, not for us to keep, but for us to use for others around us and for him. Now, I'm hoping that hearing that story about Zacchaeus and a brief little glimpse on me and Risa's story helps you maybe think about this idea of generosity as well, y'all. I'm not standing up here asking for anything from you, right? Your generosity is between you and Jesus. It is. It's 100% between you and who he is, okay? And I want you to go and speak with him, but I want to go back to our overarching question for today. Does my generosity with my time, my gifts, my possessions, and my finances reflect the faith that I have in Jesus? And as we leave here today, sometimes it's easy to hear a message and sing the good songs, and then we go and we get so busy with the Thanksgiving week that we forget to think about it. I want you to actually write it down or take a picture, and I want you to think about it this week. Does your generosity with all of these things that God has given you accurately reflect the faith that you have in Jesus? Some of you might be sitting here today unable to answer that question. You might be thinking, I don't have $15 million to give, or I don't have that particular skill set or that ability or that thing or that thing or that thing. And y'all, can I just lovingly challenge that kind of victim mentality? God has given you something incredible that he wants you to use for his kingdom and for his glory, no matter what it is. Find what that is. And this week, as you reflect on that, I want you to think about, how has Jesus changed me, and is my life reflecting that same love that he showed me? And if you are wondering, how do I do this? I want to do 4 very quick practical things we could do with time, gifts, possessions, and finances here really, really quick, okay? First, be intentionally generous with your time. Be intentionally generous with your time. As we go through these generosity series, Siri? Hey Siri? I don't know what that plural would be, okay? Sometimes we think, man, this is all about money. It's not, y'all. Can you be generous with your time? Can you intentionally carve out time this week to spend with God, or to maybe spend with that person who you've been putting off for a long time, who's hurting and who needs a friend? Or maybe even if you are really busy this week, maybe you got 27 family members coming in and you got to clean the house and scrub the toilets and get 6 turkeys ready and do all the things. Could you find a way to go serve somebody else anyways, even though you're busy, and be generous with your time? Second, start serving. Start serving. Each of us has a gift, something that we could do that others can't, something that we have been given that others maybe could benefit from. Zacchaeus had this incredible gift with money, and did you see when he interacted with Jesus, he still continued to use that gift just in a way that was beneficial for people around him? What gifts has God given you that you are currently not using for him? Think about that this week. Maybe you need to go sign up for Growth Track out here. And over the next 3 weeks, you need to go through that and then start getting plugged in and serving here at JCNaz. Maybe a community group has been asking you to volunteer because you have a skill set that they need, and you've been like, oh, I'm too busy, I don't have enough time. Maybe that's the group you need to go get plugged in with. Or maybe you just need to look at the person down the couch from you, my beautiful wife who's homesick today, and say, you know what, stay home, I'm going to take the kids to church. You get better. Feel better. Find ways to serve each other and live generously with your ability to serve. Third, assess your stuff and figure out how you can be generous with it. Y'all, 300,000 items and that many storage lockers, we all got way too much. And I can guarantee you, we all have a box somewhere in our house that sat there for 10 years untouched because we might need it someday. You don't. Can it be given to somebody else? Could it be used generously for somebody else in life? Go through all of your stuff and figure out if maybe that stuff was given to you not to hold on to as a what if and a fail safe, but maybe it was to be used for God's kingdom and for other people. And fourth, give. If you got the finances and you got the money, do it. Not out of compulsion, not because Tarek stood up here and told me to do it, all right? But if you have it, give freely and without hesitation. The one thing Risa and I will tell you all the time is every time we thought we needed more, but we gave anyway, God came back and showed us something absolutely remarkable in our life that we absolutely needed. When I'm saying give, I'm not saying give because you're commanded to. I'm saying give because Jesus has already given you absolutely everything that you need in him. So give it back, everything that you can. Now, some of you might even be here today and you're like, well, Tarek, all of that is predicated on the fact that I have a relationship with Jesus and I don't. I want to speak directly to you for a moment. So let's go ahead and close our eyes, bow our heads, nobody looking around. This is the moment of time between you and Jesus here. And maybe you came in here today, similar to Zacchaeus, similar to me back when I was 18, and you feel like you have everything you'll ever need. You've got the money, you've got the house, you've got the job, you've got the best clothes, you've got the abilities, you have everything you need, and you don't have a need for anything else. But at the same time, there's some part of you that's missing and you know it. There's some part of you that no matter how many things you have or how much good you have or the skills or abilities that you have, there's something at the very core of you and it's empty. Y'all, this is every single human's reality. because at some point we have all been right there. You see, that empty void inside of us was caused from our disobedience to God through our sin. And the first breath that we took into this world, we were filled with that sin. It's an unfortunate consequence of being human. And that put us completely separated and torn away from God. And that can never be filled by anything else other than God himself. And enter Jesus into the story of human history. God's own Son, Jesus, came down from heaven, gave up perfection to live the life that we couldn't live, a perfect life, free from sin, died on our behalf so that we didn't have to face death, and then came back to life and overcame death 3 days later so that we could have that empty void inside of us filled for the first time. And then he went back to heaven to prepare a place for us who follow him throughout our life. And everything that we thought we had now will be nothing, y'all, compared to that place that he prepares for us as we get ready to enter eternity. Maybe you came in here today with that emptiness. Maybe you keep finding yourself like Zacchaeus, empty no matter what it is that you have. And if that is you today, Jesus is offering you an extension of hope. He's wanting to maybe reach into your heart for the very first time and let you feel complete and filled for the first time. So if that's you, you're praying with me right now. And just pray this quietly in your heart. Father God, I absolutely need you. I'm empty. And God, there's a part of me that no matter what I do or how good I am or all the good deeds in the world that I do, I'm never fulfilled. I'm never enough. But God, your Son was enough. Jesus, you are enough because you could do everything that I couldn't. And you lived the life that I couldn't live. And you filled up that void for all of humanity. And God, I need that today. I believe in you, Jesus. I believe that you did what the Bible says you did. I believe that you are who you said you are. I believe that you died in my place after living a perfect life so that I could have life forever. And Jesus, I want to be filled with that knowledge for the rest of my life. Help me, Jesus, to live a life worthy of you. I ask this in your name. And for all of us today here, I pray a dangerous prayer, but maybe it's one that we can all pray this week. Lord, show me how I can use my life to live more generously and better reflect the faith that I have in you. I love you, Lord. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.